Hey, before we get started today, I was just thinking, I don't want to forget that I think on Tuesday we said we were going to wash the windows. You remember that?
Boo.
And again, I think on Thursday you have that dentist appointment on Thursday. That's what I wasn't going to forget.
Boo.
And then on Friday, we said we're going to go over the budget together. That definitely don't want to forget that.
That's a big boo.
Okay, why are you booing me? What are you doing?
Because you remind me of the ref at the soccer game we went to.
How so?
Because I hate everything you're doing right now. Boo.
Okay, well, if I am like the ref at the soccer game, then guess what? Yellow card.
Boo.
Let's do this. I'm pretty sure that's the most booing I've ever gotten in my whole life. That was a lot.
Well, as always with our goofy skits, we're trying to kind of set the mood, and we're going to talk about booing later. So should be interesting. All stemming from the soccer game we went to. We're going to tell you about that too.
Okay.
But for show and tell, let's start with some more flower stuff. It's our favorite. That's what we do.
Yeah.
We actually went to Iris City Gardens, which is near here. Prim Springs, Tennessee, which I'd never heard of until we
What a
were
cute
trying
name,
to.
though.
Yeah.
Prim Springs.
Trying to find Iris City Gardens for the first time a few years ago, and they specialize in irises and peonies and daylilies, and then plus they have a lot of other plants also, show gardens and things for sale, and it's one of our favorite places in the spring when everything's blooming. So today we're going to focus on Louisiana Iris, which is a particular type that likes to have wet feet. You can even grow them in the edge of ponds, but this first one is one that's in our garden. All the ones that we're going to show you today are have either been in our garden for a little bit or they're new. So I don't have all the names of all of these, but this is one we've had for a while. This is a picture from my garden, and so is this. I love all these in their own way. They're all beautiful, so that's why.
Is this rooster tail?
This is called Grease.
Oh, that's
Gris twice.
Yep.
I don't know what language that is. This is rooster. It's just called rooster.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of more that rust and yellow, and yeah, I love that one. This one, I can't remember. I'm going to start mixing the names up. But this is a pastel one with the light blue and yellow and white that we've had for a couple of years. And it was fun to catch a little bee in it on that one. And this is just, it's fun to catch more than one kind. I love macro, so I always get close in. But then if I can get back and get like a more garden view, I just think it's fun to have all the colors mixed together.
Yeah, and a sneak peek for the summer. In this picture, we've got the cannas peeking up in the back.
Yep.
And so those will be gorgeous too.
Yeah, we get cannas with green leaves and red leaves and all different bloom colors. Here's another one that's got at least 3 different kinds in the same shot of the Louisiana Iris. And this is our newest one. We had such a weekend. I have no idea what the name of this one is, but I like it. It's a little different than anything else we have. This one I do remember is very vein, Vein, because the veins show a lot more than they do in some other irises. It's that pastel with the veins on it. And then I think this is the same new one. It looks a little different in this picture, but I like it so much. I showed it twice. And this one
This is my new one.
Yep. You would pick this one out, and it's called When Pigs Fly.
And it's so cute. Look at the little petals, and they look like little pig's ears.
Well, I guess if Pig was going to fly, he would use his ears.
That's right.
Like Dumbo.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. That'll do, Pig.
Yeah.
That'll do.
That's fun. And you had also said you wanted some white just to kind of, because we have so many colors. A lot of them are darker, and then the white kind of lightens everything up. So in a couple of years when this kind of spreads around.
I love white in a garden. It reflects light. It's a contrast to all the dark. It just makes everything beautiful. I love it.
And this one is pretty close to a true blue, which is nice. Lots of purples, lots of purple flowers, but the blue is nice. And then to end this up, I said we were going to focus on Louisiana Iris, but we do have this one yellow peony in our garden that's so beautiful. We actually cut this one and put it in a vase, and I got a good picture of it. So
Yeah, you were kind of, what's the word? You were kind of getting after me for not bringing any peonies in the house. And I was like, oh yeah, well, I can bring peonies in the house. I just, take a little extra Claritin.
it depends on the flower. Some you can handle in the house,
Yeah.
and some you can't. So
I am getting better at them. I think, I think it's tiger lily that's so fragrant that I can't have those in the house.
a lot of bearded iris are not fragrant, but some are. And we had some in Michigan that were, and I loved them, and I brought them in the house, and then you had a fit and told me I couldn't bring them in the house anymore.
Yeah. Well,
So
and I think my allergies are different here. And I do try to take more allergy medicine here.
yeah,
You just need it.
yep.
Thank you, Tennessee.
Well, I mentioned, Tennessee, the bowl of Nashville is one of the worst places in the world for allergies, is what they say. But a lot of other things are great about living here, so we put up with it. I mentioned earlier that we went to a soccer game over the weekend. So Nashville, for a couple of years now, has its own professional soccer team in the MLS. They call them Nashville SC, which stands for Soccer Club. So we had not been to a game yet. I love sports, and Hillary's learned to like sports, but we just, we're busy and we don't get there. And we got a chance to go this weekend, and it was really fun on Saturday night.
It was so much fun.
Yeah. We have friends who have kids in rec league soccer, and they got a special deal on tickets that they were able to let us kind of join in on, but also their kids got to come out on the field with the players.
That was so cool.
They call it the walkout, and
Yeah.
they come out right before the national anthem, and the kids get to come out with players and be out on the field for the national anthem, and that was really cool.
Yeah, only 22 kids got their names pulled to do this, and 11 walked out with Nashville, 11 walked out with North Carolina, and the starters from each team, and both of our friends' kids got pulled, and
Yeah.
so that was so awesome. I was
fun.
excited. Yeah.
I meant to look up the name of the Charlotte team. I don't even know like what their mascot and whatever is, but yeah. So it was Nashville versus Charlotte, and here's a better picture of the whole field, and it's just huge. I mean, my kids played soccer, but the fields get bigger as you get older, and I've never been to a soccer game in person where the field was this big. It's just,
they must be very old. You said the fields get bigger as they get older.
yeah. Well, they're not that old because, man, there a lot of running.
I mean, I didn't realize they don't stop. The clock just goes.
Right.
Like
And they don't have that many substitutions at the professional level. And so those guys really have to be conditioned.
The cardio, man.
I just had my cell phone, so these pictures aren't great, but I tried to get some action shots. And this is actually the goalie with the red jersey is the Nashville goalie, and the Nashville colors are gold. And so the blue team is from Charlotte. Well, Charlotte has a corner kick in this picture, and I drew an arrow on the picture to show you where the ball is. It looks like it's laying on the field right outside the goalie box. It's not. It's in the air. So that's the corner kick in the air. And in the next picture, the arrow moves. It looks like it's at the feet of a Nashville player. It's not. It's in the air. And the goalie is launching to deflect the ball, which he did. And then Nashville got it out of the zone. Yeah.
I feel like he was a really good goalie.
He was and is a good goalie. And here we have fireworks after one of the Nashville goals. Home team, the good guys, ended up winning.
Yeah.
2-1. You can see it on the scoreboard there on the left side. Yellow Nashville with 2 and Charlotte with 1.
Thank you to our sponsor, Publix, who not only sponsored this podcast, not really, but they were sponsoring the game.
Yeah.
And when we walked in, they were just passing out really cool free shirts. And so we both ended up with some shirts, and
Yeah.
they only had one size.
One
so
size fits all.
It did look a little different on us than it did on the 3-year-olds walking around. But
Well, it looked a little different on you than it did me. So,
but they were cute. They were good shirts.
well, it was cool to get something for free. And
Yeah.
there's the logo in the corner of one of the corners of the stadium. It's a cool stadium.
It
And
really
it holds
is.
a lot of people. It's bigger than I thought it was going to be when we got there.
Yeah.
And last picture, here we are leaving. And that blob in the sky above the words Geodis Park, which is the name of the stadium, is the moon.
Yeah.
So hard to get a good picture of the moon with the cell phone, but
It was a beautiful night. Great weather.
yeah.
Fun game. Good
It was
friends.
really-
It was fun.
Yeah, 2-1, but the bad guys scored first, and so Nashville had to come back, and then eventually they scored the go-ahead goal. It was a lot of fun.
That's right.
We had a big weekend, and it was Mother's Day, so here is Hillary's Mother's Day
Yay.
portrait. You look so beautiful.
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
We had a great day, and in the afternoon on Sunday, we went up to West End, Nashville,
Yep.
with our local kids, and we all went on a garden tour. So we walked all throughout the Hillsborough, West End. Let's see, I wrote it down. I'm doing all these notes from memory, but let me get the name right.
Well, and shout out to our son John, who even told us about it. And
Yeah.
he's like, "Hey, Mom, this looks like something you might like. You want to do this for Mother's Day?" And it was really fun. I truly enjoyed it, and I think some of the kids enjoyed it more than some. But I thanked them all because some of them, their gift to me was going on the tour. You know who you are. Thank you.
Yes, and having a good attitude, and I mean they're all great kids, but
Yeah.
it was really cool that John suggested that and kind of helped organize it.
I loved it, truly.
Yeah, it was the Hillsborough West End Neighborhood 4th Annual Garden Tour. So here's some wildflowers. This wasn't even on the tour, but you're walking through the neighborhood, so you're walking past all these people's houses, and these wildflowers were just out along the sidewalk. I loved it, so I took a picture of those.
Yeah.
And then there's also a park, the Fannie Mae Dees Park in West Nashville, that was part of the tour because in that park is what they call an arboretum, which means that they labeled pretty much all the trees in the park. So if you're interested in trees, you can go and learn about, what kind of tree is that? What kind of tree is that? But it's also a park. So there's
Yeah.
green space and there's a playground. And in the playground was this dragon that is actually a climbing thing for kids. It's made out of concrete and then it's covered in mosaic tile.
Yeah. Very
I
cool.
just thought it was really cool. And one of our son-in-laws is originally from Nashville, and he said it's been here his whole life, so a couple decades at least. He doesn't remember that not being a thing, and had gone there and played on it several times. And I was fascinated that none of the tiles are missing that I saw. I mean, I didn't examine
That's-
every
that's
one of
amazing.
the tens of thousands of pieces, but then we got Mickey Mouse playing the piano. There's all kinds of little stuff in that dragon.
Yeah, that was cool. And then at that park, somebody had mentioned, "Hey, we're not too far from Jenny's ice cream," which I would have loved because I love Jenny's, but I was too tired to walk any further than we were already walking. But then I did notice, hey, there was an ice cream truck.
Yep.
And so we did walk over to the edge of the park and grab some ice cream. That was super fun. But I'm going to do the rain check on Jenny's ice cream because that would have been even better.
Well, if you've never been on a garden tour before, what you do is you show up. They tell you where to go to pay. So you show up, you pay, you get a bracelet, which if anybody wants to check, that you've paid and you're part of the tour, and they give you a program. And in the program is a map and the addresses of the homes and a little bit about them. And so you just walk. And they had a trolley if you wanted to jump on the trolley, but you walk from home to home and check out the yards, and most of them you could also go in the backyard. And so it was fun.
Yeah, it was
There was a lot of walking, and when we were done, I was glad we were done, but it was...
Yep, we might have skipped a couple at the end. We
Yeah.
were tired.
But it was cool. And this picture is pretty close to a true blue hydrangea. It's got a little lavender in there, but that's the bluest. Or I said the wrong name.
I know.
Hang on.
I know.
It's clematis.
Yes.
It's a fuzzy blue clematis, and it's probably the bluest one I've ever seen. So
It's beautiful.
I like that a lot. And this is a weeping redbud. We only have a couple pictures from the tour. This is a clematis for sure. That's not common. I believe I looked it up, and I think it's an alpine, and it has instead of regular open flower, almost like a daisy with pointed leaf type pattern, which is what most clematis are. This one is like a bell.
Yeah.
The flower is like a bell shape.
That was really cool.
So that was cool. And
I think this yard was like our favorite.
This one was.
Yeah.
These are all in the same.
Yeah, it was really great.
And then they had a what I call a bubbling fountain. We're getting ready to install one of these in June for a customer. So it's a pot that fills up with water and bubbles over, and you can do it in a bed of gravel. This one's actually in a teeny tiny little pond in a corner of the yard with Japanese maple wrapped around it, but super cool. But it was fun.
Yeah, it was very fun.
It was a good experience.
I would do it again.
Yeah?
Yeah. Would eat here again. 5 stars.
As much as I liked it, my favorite part was a couple of our kids came back to the house afterward, and they told us when they pulled up to our backyard, they said, well, this was the best house on the tour today, which we weren't on the tour, but
that was very sweet.
That was nice. Well, so when we were at the soccer game on Saturday night, it felt like the officiating. Now, I haven't been to a soccer game in a minute, and I know the basic rules. I also know that soccer players and basketball players on a professional level are bigger floppers than in any other sport. And there's contact. Guys are elbowing, trying to fight for the ball. Yeah. And, guy comes in and does this, then, the other person falls down and is like, oh my gosh, can you believe he hit me that hard? Yeah. And I think he might have broke my nose. And really it's nothing. They're just trying to get a call. So
as a mom, I recognize a good flop. And I will say that even I could tell, like, okay, I think you're making more of this than it really was. So I love when they get up, they're like, what?
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We all saw that.
So I will admit, especially where we were way up in the corner, you could kind of tell from the seats, we weren't right up on the field, but you have replay. They had big screens, and it felt like this happened. The Charlotte player was the victim, quote unquote victim. This happened. The Nashville player was the victim, and they looked amazingly similar. When the Charlotte player was the victim, it was a penalty. When the Nashville player was the victim, not a penalty. So, I mean, if that happens once, you go, whatever. If I were the ref, I wouldn't get every call right. There's a lot going on. And even in professional soccer with that huge field, there's only one. You've got your side officials that tell you which way, the ball came out. Whose ball is it? Oh, it goes this way. The ball goes this way. And they can kind of help out on a call, but usually the main ref in the center just wants to make the calls. And it felt like it was a little slanted against the home team. And I don't know why. That was kind of weird, but there was some booing. So there was some booing, and I let most of it go because I don't go that often, and I don't want to be overreactionary or whatever. There were a couple times where it just felt like the ref was really not on it, and I booed a couple times. So booing is maybe not your favorite thing at sporting events.
It depends. I kind of have some rules for the booing, and I will say, now that I've been to a lot of Nashville Predators games, I kind of understand a little bit more, getting into the hockey a little bit.
Predator fans are not playing around.
No. And so, but at that point, it almost seems like more of a fun activity to be a part of, like with the crowd. People aren't as angry as they seem to be. So we've talked about this for a long time. And I think my rule basically is if someone's not getting paid to do this sport, there's no booing. For example,
if they're not paid to be a referee,
even the referee, because sometimes you'll boo players.
Well, I'm going to talk about that, but go ahead.
Yeah. So but if the referee is a volunteer if they're just helping out with the youth soccer league, or they're, helping out with something at the high school or the middle school, it's not their professional job. We're not booing that ref. That ref is volunteering their time.
And by we, she means her.
I mean you. The rule is no booing. But I will say, if this is their professional job and people that know more about the sport than I do think that they're really doing a bad job, sometimes I think that's the way to keep them in check.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they're volunteer, no booing. You can lodge a formal complaint.
All right.
Those are my rules.
Well, I have noticed, because we've lived different places, I've lived different places, that people in different regions of the country have a tendency to cheer or boo according to different paradigms and different
cultures,
personal rules. So when we lived in Michigan, you got a lot more booing, even at rec league and at high school, and people were into it. And we, over the years, went to Lions games and Piston games. We heard a lot of booing and a lot of all kinds of things yelled from from the stands. As a longtime sports fan, I know that Philadelphia in general has a reputation for being pretty mean, rude fans who, you might not want to even go there as a visiting fan with the visiting team's jersey and be a raucous supporter of your team, because you might not leave the same way you came in. They just aren't playing. And the Raiders, when they used to be in Oakland, those fans had the same reputation. I'm not defending that. I'm just telling you, Philadelphia at one point I think it was at an Eagles game, booed Santa Claus. They're kind of known for that. It's just, mean, it's its own little
that's just weird
community of people. But in Tennessee, we're in the mid South. Oh, for sure. We're here in the mid South, which is mostly polite. And so when we first moved here and I started going to high school football games, and if I didn't like what the ref was doing, I would boo the ref, and people would turn around and look at me, and I'm like, what?
I would distance myself.
She's like scooting away from me. Well, I had heard, when we lived in Michigan, I had heard this argument. I paid to be here. I bought a ticket. There's the freedom of speech extends into the stadium. I could say whatever I want. Now, I'm not condoning people going to a high school game or a rec league game and swearing or whatever. I'm not saying that, but you at least have the right to boo if you think the refs are doing a bad job. So I, over time, kind of backed off of that a little bit here in Tennessee when it came to, some of the lower levels of sports, meaning younger kids. And it's a different social paradigm here. And so I didn't want to be viewed as a problem or as being super disrespectful. But at professional sports in particular, there are a lot of different reasons why fans sometimes boo. And I wanted to kind of talk about some of those. There are, we're talking mostly about the refs, but sometimes fans will boo a player. So why would you do that? Well, if you think a player from the opposing team is cheating, you would boo for that.
Yeah.
Especially if they seem to be intentionally trying to injure other players, knock them out of the game, or even try to end their season, you would definitely boo for that.
I actually have booed for that. Almost got kicked out of a soccer game. You know what I'm going to say.
When we're back to the young person level.
Back to the, but yeah, I mean, I could see where.
But that little girl was mean.
She was mean, and she intentionally tried to hurt our daughter.
Yep. Right
in front of me. Bad mistake. The ball was nowhere near them, and I saw her intentionally reach out to kick our daughter.
Yeah.
And
tried to kick her, trip her.
Yeah, I came unglued, and I was yelling at that girl from the field because she was going to get away with it.
You were yelling from the sidelines.
From what'd I say?
From the field.
I was
on the field.
About on the field.
Yeah.
I was from
I
the
had
sidelines.
the back of your shirt, which is why you were not on the field.
But I was so angry because it was just so not called for. They weren't fighting for the ball. It wasn't an accident. She went out of her way to try to injure my daughter, and the ref didn't see it. And he came over and yelled at me because I was yelling at that little girl, and the ref came over and yelled at me, and he says, "Is that your daughter?" And I said, "No, it's not, but she's kicking my daughter." And then he didn't actually yell at me after that. I think he did tell me I had to sit down or I had to leave, but I did sit down. But you know what? I think that girl's going to think twice before she goes trying to trip some other kid. So that was my form of a boo. And I do understand if you think somebody's intentionally trying to injure somebody else, that's worth a boo.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I'm with you, man.
For sure. Another reason to boo a player, sometimes fans actually boo players on their own team if they think that that player has given up, or if you have a player that you think is not making progress. So sometimes, especially like a young quarterback, he might be a season and a half into his career, and you don't expect him to play like Tom Brady in his prime, but you're expecting him to get better, and he's not getting better, and the coach keeps putting him in, and there's a backup on the bench who has proven that he's better than how the starter is playing at this point in his career, and you're like, hey man, we're trying to win games, what are you doing? So you're kind of booing the coach, but also booing the player. Like, why is this guy even in here? He just made his 14th bad play of the game, and we have a better option. So, again, some of these might be controversial. Other people have different reasons why they do or don't.
I'm not booing that.
Boo, but that's one that happens. I'm not necessarily saying I would boo in every one of these situations, but
yeah.
So the coach is all.
I'm not booing that one.
I just got yellow carded for stating facts. So the coach sometimes gets booed if you don't like the play that's been called, or if you don't like the way the coach is managing the game, which could be, again, why are you leaving that player in, or whatever. There's a lot of nuances to different sports. If you think the opposing coach is being unsportsmanlike, which could be running up the score, especially at amateur levels. We saw examples of that in rec league soccer, and where some coaches would just run up the score, and other coaches would say like, hey, let's, we're up 5-0 and we know this team's not that good. Let's move some players around. Let the players that don't play a lot get in. And we're not trying to just run up the score. When you get to the professional level, when I was a kid, that was a thing. Don't disrespect your opponent by running up the score. And now in 2025, not so much. It's like, hey, we're trying to gain confidence and work on some plays, and if we can score on you, we're going to keep scoring on you. This is what I've heard people say at the professional level. If you don't like how many points we're scoring, stop us. So, but
and again, I would say at the professional level, who's to say they're not going to come back and beat you if you don't get that? I mean, maybe there's a line to be drawn, but I'm just saying, if you're like, oh, we've got a cushion, we're not going to score anymore. I think that's a bad idea.
Right.
You're here to win. You're getting paid to win. Win your game.
And the other part of that is I've watched enough sports to see some pretty amazing comebacks.
Right.
So sometimes a team is way up and they start to coast, and then they can't get their mojo back, and then they end up losing. So yeah, there's a lot of sides to that. I've seen coaches yell at players, which is that, like, coach of the blue team yells at a player from the red team, which, you're really not supposed to do. And so different reasons why coaches sometimes get booed. I think the officials are the most likely ones to get booed. And we that's kind of what we started with, is talking about the Nashville SC game and how the officials seemed like they weren't really great. Even though the good guys won. But you boo for the ref if you don't like a call that they make. You boo a lot more if there seems to be a pattern of bad calls, or that they're calling like this exact play is happening, and every time the yellow team does it, you don't call it, and every time the green team does it, you do call it. What the heck? What are you doing? What's going on? That's definitely, I think, a fair time to boo.
And if it's so obvious that I notice it, it's out of control.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not that experienced with sports. So if I notice it and I think there's a problem, probably there should be some booing.
Well, and I've heard on sports talk radio too, people that follow it even more than I do know, like the refs, they know them by name. And this particular ref or this particular crew of officials, tend to call games for a particular team quite a bit. That head referee or that crew doesn't like this team. And every time they call a game for them, they seem to not call it very objectively. And so, if they have it in for a certain team or a certain player, then the fans pick up on that. And then, they get booed a lot. I don't know if it changes anything, but that's when you can.
They shouldn't be able to do that, though. There should be a way to.
Well, if the league's on top of things and
mix things up a little bit,
being objective and really enforcing things, you can, the whole premise of sports is that it's not predetermined. So if it's not predetermined, the refs should be objective and they should be calling the game properly, and the league should be making sure that that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So life is not perfect. Well, so we could go on and on and on, but those are a lot of the reasons why booing happens in sports, whether you agree with it or not. But a boo, quote unquote, could maybe not always happen exactly as saying the word boo to someone. But if you're not happy with someone, what are some other ways that people get booed outside of sports?
I think when you're driving, a horn honk.
Yeah.
It's a boo.
Boo, boo. Don't like how you're driving. Boo.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Well, maybe the most common one these days is comments on social media.
Yeah.
If you don't like what someone does or says, then you have all kinds of ways of saying negative things about them, which is a form of a boo.
Mm-hmm. Which is, in my opinion, getting totally out of hand.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think it kind of goes back to, as a fan sitting up in the seats, you feel pretty safe, like booing from a distance to say to the ref, I don't like what you're doing. But it would be a whole lot different if you had to go down to the field, get right in their face and say, hey, Frank, on that last play, I really think you misjudged that. If you had to really have a conversation every time, you might be a little more hesitant to do your booing.
Yeah.
If you had to back it up. And I think we do that in social media too.
Oh, yeah.
And with our honking, the same people that you see in the grocery store that you're like, oh, hey, nice to see you, neighbor. They get in the car and all of a sudden you're honking at them now like, hey, that was actually a person in the car.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the comments are made from such a distance that people feel free to boo more harshly and frequently than they would in person, I think.
Well, yes. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about how to do that. But a lot of people feel that that's kind of a cowardly way to, when you lash out at someone, especially if you don't have an account with your real name and your real picture on it, then you have the anonymity of I'm, Honey Bunny 123, and now I'm gonna say horrible things about you.
I'm gonna call you that this week.
Okay. Whatever I come up with is fodder for insults.
I love it. No, it's a sweet name. I like it, Honey Bunny.
An old-fashioned way that you don't see as much, newspaper editorials. That's a way to boo someone if you don't like what they're doing. Newspapers do still exist in paper, but especially online. So that's a way. TV news coverage. Or it doesn't even have to be news, but opinion shows or whatever. But when things happen in society and they're, bringing that to you, or especially when they're commenting on it, they'll let you know if they don't like it. Podcast comments, which kind of goes under social media more or less. But
we get to boo anything we want.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've had a couple of those already, so it's all good.
Emails, right?
Oh yeah, emails.
That's our form of, somebody should write a letter. So we just,
Well, and people do still write paper letters and send them in the snail mail. And I've heard that if you don't like what your representative, like your congressman, is doing, the best way to get their attention is to write a paper letter and send it snail mail. That gets the most attention. So
because nobody probably does that. Nobody takes the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We could do a whole episode on how to address an envelope.
We could. We could. Instructional video with David and Hillary. I think at the voting. So I was going to say at the polls. So there's a couple different kinds of voting, but whenever there's an election for, as I mentioned, congressman, representative, president, dog catcher, whatever, if you don't like the job that someone's doing, then you do what we call vote them out, which means show up to the polls and vote for someone else. Excuse me. So that's a form of a boo. Like a boo, I don't like the way you're doing this job. I'm going to vote for somebody else. Another, another form of
Must be the peony.
voting is if you're on a board of something and they'll vote from time to time about, does this person keep their job, or are we going to go in a different direction with one of our policies? And so, that's a way to express your opinion.
These are just really polite boos.
Yeah. So there's different kinds of boos.
Yeah.
Polite, mean,
yeah,
angry.
Yeah. I mean, there's still a boo,
Frustrated.
Yeah.
Disgusted. Well, so we talked about ways that people could boo. So whom, I think I'm doing this grammatically correct, whom is most likely to receive a boo outside of sports?
I'm going to say, I'm going to say government officials.
Yeah, probably.
I think. Yeah.
We're in a period, obviously, in the United States where we just went through a hotly contested election and people have a lot of opinions.
I mean, I guess it depends on what stage of life you're in. If you've got a lot of young kids at school, maybe you get frustrated with teachers. Maybe that's where your attention is going. Yeah.
I would say people in leadership in general, which would be government officials, teachers, pastors.
Yep. Parents get booed. We get booed.
Right. That's right. I know as well. It's funny. I mean, I grew up a pastor's kid and I was a youth pastor for a couple of years, but also even our pastor now sometimes will say, I know I'm going to get emails about this, and then he'll go on to preach something he thinks is true, knowing that everybody's not going to like it. Some of them are going to boo him with an email.
Yeah.
So yeah, people in leadership. And then I think also people who are in the spotlight, actors, especially if they take a stand outside of their acting for politics or whatever. Musicians and other stage performers can get booed. Influencers, which is back to kind of the social media thing, and writers. But people who are in the spotlight, if you don't like what they're doing in the spotlight, you let them know.
Yeah, I guess that is true.
Yeah.
I don't want to get booed.
You got booed enough at the beginning of this episode to hold you over for a while.
When we got that, what was the new game we got where you have to moo at people?
Oh my goodness.
What is that?
What is that called?
All I can think of is the movie Over the Hedge. Why am I thinking of Hedge?
I do.
Herd mentality.
Herd mentality.
Herd mentality.
Thank you.
And if someone's taking too long to write their answer, there's a cow in the game, and so if they are taking too long, you get to moo at them. And the first few times I did it, I didn't like it. I was like, oh, I don't want to yell at them. But then I got over it, and now I like to moo at people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
it's
all
like being
fun.
at the soccer game.
Yeah.
With the mean little girl, and you were like all about it.
Now once I realized it needed to be done. That's
right. Well, as Christians, what are acceptable ways to boo people? I mean, is there such a thing? Because a lot of people nowadays think that Christianity is all about being nice and showing love 24/7, 365. If you're not doing that, you're not a Christian, which I think we've talked enough in our early episodes about what it is to really be a Christian that, we don't necessarily believe that. But can you be a Christian and are there acceptable ways to boo people?
Like literally to say boo at them?
Well, just in the context of this, we're kind of moving outside the sports arena. And so when you're outside the sports arena, people don't usually say boo. We mentioned music and other performers. If you're really disappointed with someone's performance, then at a live event, you might boo. But most of that, we're talking about just bad mouthing them or sending them a letter or an email or whatever. So I just want to know, like, is there an acceptable way to do that? And what would that be? What is it?
I got an opinion.
What does it mean? I guess I thought we clarified this, but maybe we didn't. So let me back up just a second and say that I would say to boo someone is to let them know that you're upset with them or that you don't like something they've done or said.
I think there's probably too much of that going on right now. Not everybody needs to know your opinion.
Yeah.
Right? Like people don't need to know what I think of them personally, right? They're not going to give an account to me. I think people feel like more people are accountable to them than are actually accountable to them.
Well, I think social media has done that.
Yeah.
Because before it's like, well, you have a few people at work you talk to, a few people at school, a few people in your neighborhood or whatever, wherever your circles are, that you have people you hang out with and you talk to them and maybe they listen, maybe they don't. But man, when you have social media, you're scrolling through and seeing what everybody else is saying. And then you jump on and make a comment or you initiate a comment on your page or your account or whatever, and you feel like this is my way to tell the whole world what I think about this because this is important and they need to know. Yeah, I mean, they probably don't need to know, but
right. Well, I think my rule for myself, number one, is it any of my business? Most things aren't.
That's true.
Number two, I always try to think about the verse that says that we're supposed to speak the truth in love.
Right.
So sometimes I think I see things and I think, oh, I need to say something about that. And then I think, are you actually doing that from a motivation of love? Do you really love that person so much that you want to speak the truth to them because of that love? And most of the times, no. It is not. It's because I want to just make sure they know, like that justification. Like you want, I need people to know that's wrong. And so for me, if I can't truly, honestly say, I'm saying this out of love, I don't say it.
Well,
does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because a lot of people aren't under my authority.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? If it's somebody in your job and they're in authority under you, like you're in charge of them.
Your kids.
Right.
Your kids if they're underage.
Yeah. If your kids are still at home and they're under your authority, then it's your job. It's your job to make sure that you're training, not necessarily booing them, but
using it as a broad general term.
Yeah. Right. But you know what I'm saying? Like if they're not under your responsibility, most of it's probably not your business.
Okay. Well, so we said booing someone is letting them know that you're upset or that you don't like something they did or said. And so then what is the goal of letting them know that you're not happy with them? And so I came up with a couple reasons why people, your point is well taken that a lot of times it's not your responsibility, but we do live in the United States of America where we still have freedom of speech. And when you do have people who are in positions of leadership of some kind, then maybe you feel like it is your job to let them know if you're unhappy. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. We'll kind of keep talking about that. But I would say the reasons why you do that, saying it again under the broad heading of boo in quotes, that you're not happy with them, is that you're hoping that if you point out what they did wasn't appropriate, assuming that you're correct, you're hoping that they won't repeat that
True.
That same behavior.
Yep.
You also are trying to let them know that they've hurt you. Again, these could be a lot of different types of things, but in some cases you feel like you've been hurt by something somebody said or did, and you want to let them know that. That's why you reach out, and that's why you let them know. So that could be legit. It might be, maybe this person is being unkind. Maybe they're even being verbally abusive or whatever. Again, there could be lots of different situations. So maybe you need to stand up for yourself. Maybe it could be a situation where you shouldn't be a super oversensitive whiner. So those are two different things. I'm not saying if someone's being verbally abusive, don't whine about it. I'm not saying that that's what that is. I'm saying there could be lots of different levels. And so it's good to know, like, is this something that I need to say something, or is it something that I need to just brush it off and keep moving? And I think sometimes that can be hard to really differentiate that.
And I think too, as you're saying this, I'm thinking it also probably just depends on the personality of the person that's seeing the wrong. Sometimes I probably don't say anything because that's just not my personality to be the one to say, hey, you better change this, or you better do this.
Right.
Except like when it personally affected me, when I saw my child getting hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, wild horses couldn't hold me back. And also, I think when I see other people addressing it, I think, okay, well, good. It's being taken care of. I don't need to pile on. I don't need to jump in.
Right.
But then other personalities, I think that is more of their go-to. Like, oh, I better take care of this. I'm gonna jump in and say something too. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think sometimes it's just personal preference, right?
Yeah.
How involved do you want to get into the discussion?
Yeah. There are definitely different personality types that approach that differently. So I mentioned that it might be difficult to know, like, should I say something about this or should I let it go? And if you're not sure, but it keeps bothering you, then maybe reach out to someone that you know is a mature Christian in your life. Or if you're not a Christian, someone that you feel like has pretty good discernment, that makes good decisions in their life, and ask them if they'd be willing to talk through this with you. Is this something where I need to let someone know, hey, I didn't appreciate what you said, and or do you let it go? And the last goal of letting someone know that you're not happy with them, and that I wrote down, is that you want to do your best to keep or restore a good relationship, and you don't want to break fellowship over something that's resolvable. So you're letting them know so that we can deal with this, so we can resolve it, so that we can move on to a better place, because I'm not sure we can continue to be friends if you're going to keep treating me like this, or if you're going to be the representative for this district, we got, you can't keep doing that. That doesn't represent the larger beliefs of the people in this area, or whatever it is.
Yeah. When you said keep or restore a good relationship, and it actually kind of came to me that ironically, I think more people are involved in online conversations, online problems, online complaints, where they want to jump in and make sure my opinion's known and get this settled. But then I thought, how many of those people are actually actively working to keep a close, good relationship?
Yeah.
Where they're not even taking as much time as they do for these other relationships that really probably don't even matter. Mm. But they're not taking the time to try to restore and keep the communication that they need for a good relationship, for a close relationship.
Right.
So the irony of that just kind of hit me.
Well, again, just the discernment to know.
Right. Which one of these should you be investing that much energy, that much time,
right,
to make sure you're communicating with them?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we have another list before we kind of wrap this up. What are some things to avoid? in this process. If you feel like you do need to let someone know that you're unhappy with something they said or did, as you're going about that, what are some things to not do? And number one is to have a holier than thou attitude. If you're not familiar with what that means, it's an old saying that means that you come across as, I'm more righteous than you. I'm right. You're wrong. And even if you think you're right and they're wrong, just to kind of have that real strong, like, I'm upset with you and I'm right and you're wrong. And I'm a Bible scholar, so obviously anything I say and do is going to be just right, and anything you say that disagrees with that, you're going to be wrong. And nobody responds well to that, even if that's kind of what you're thinking. So avoid that when you're interacting with someone.
Right. And if you've got a conflict, you've obviously got two people that think they're right.
Yeah.
So if you're going to resolve anything, you're both going to have to come into it with the idea of, I'm going to need to listen to you also. And we need to be able to hear each other. So yeah,
absolutely,
that's important.
Another thing to avoid is condescending speech, which kind of goes along with that holier than thou attitude. But, just keep that in mind. A feeling that you have to win the argument, because I think when there's a conflict and you feel like you have to say something about it, then of course you think that you have to win the argument. But if you're going to go to the point of having the discussion or reaching out and saying whatever it is you feel like you have to say, then maybe winning the argument is not the point, but expressing yourself in a professional way. And then hopefully you can talk about it and see what happens from there. But you're not going to win every single argument. So if you have that attitude, that oftentimes does not go toward the conflict resolution strategy. Yeah. And so I also wrote down having to be right, which is kind of a summary of everything I just said. So
well, and we love to be right.
We do.
That apple still stays with us. So
everybody likes to be right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And really just to have the humility to think, I might be wrong. Mm-hmm. And maybe not, maybe you're in the right when you come into the argument, but things are, like we always like to say, it's complicated.
It is.
Things are always complicated. It's never just simplistic. You're right, I'm wrong, you're right. It's never. Did I just say the right? I think I made myself wrong each time.
As long as you looked at me and said
Boo,
you're right, then
boo. No. Yeah. I mean, just to be able to have the humility to say, even with the referees, like you even said, we were sitting kind of far away. We didn't get to see every replay. It's possible I wasn't quite right on every.
I mean, my
call.
Nashville SC friends thought that the reffing was bad. So,
That's right.
Yeah, but that's a good point. So just remember, the goal is to preserve the relationship if possible. And you may need to embrace the concept of we're gonna have to agree to disagree agreeably. Mm-hmm. That's an old saying that I really, really like. I mean, if I can help you see my side and you understand why I'm upset and you're willing to change your behavior, that's great. Especially if I can do it professionally and not, make an enemy out of you in the process. That's great. But you get two people together that see things completely opposite and they're both strong-willed and neither one of them wants to give in. At some point, you may just have to say, we can be friends and not see exactly eye to eye on every single thing that comes up in our relationship. I still want to be your friend, and I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree agreeably.
That's like a really great manual for a marriage.
Yeah.
Because
that is.
I mean, how many times do we hear people say, "Oh, we are so opposite." And you're not going to see eye to eye on every single thing, especially the things that are just opinions, right? Mm-hmm. I like this better than that. You like this better than that. Right. You're going to have to be willing to hear the other person, be willing to agree to disagree on some things, maybe not the big things, but there's so many little things.
Right.
And, yeah, if you don't have that spirit of humility to say, I actually love you more than I love being right.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, you're really going to struggle with it. So.
Right. Even if it's not a romantic love, like I care more about our friendship than I have to be right on every single thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
because at the end, those people aren't going to stand before me and be judged.
yeah.
They're going to stand before the Lord and be judged, but so will I.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be held accountable for the way that I loved those people.
Right.
So, yeah, I think you got to keep the end in mind and keep the perspective that you need.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to kind of wrap it up with a couple passages from the Bible. So Matthew 18:15-17 in the English Standard Version says, "If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not listen, take one or two others along with you, that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector." So it allows for the fact that you may get to the end and not be able to find any common ground, which would be unfortunate, but you're trying to work it out. And there's more than one step. If you try to work it out and it doesn't work, try again. Just bring some people along, not as enforcers necessarily, but as witnesses, so that other people can see what's really happening in this. And maybe by getting more people involved, you might be able to come to a resolution.
Yeah, I think about Proverbs 15:1 a lot, because sometimes if you're in a heated exchange with someone, it does not help to just keep returning fire for fire.
Mm-hmm.
Someone is going to have to be the one to say, Proverbs 15:1 says, "A soft answer turns away wrath,
Yep.
but a harsh word stirs up anger." And sometimes I think it's better just to give that soft answer until everybody can kind of settle down.
Yeah.
And then when the tempers are calm, maybe you can go back. And like you said, maybe with more people. And then just to say, not as these are my bullies. This is my mob friends. But just so other people can get the perspective. Because sometimes you can't hear what each other are saying.
Right.
And so sometimes it's better just to give the soft answer and then come back when everyone's calm.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's not always easy. You know, I struggle with an Irish temper, and we live in a time where a lot of people have kind of gone to a point of saying, whatever the topic is, if we disagree, I'm right and you're an idiot. And the person on the other side is saying, no, you have that exactly right, but backwards, I'm right and you're an idiot, obviously. And that just doesn't get anybody very far. We'll do one more. Ephesians 4:31 and 32 says, "Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you." So obviously all these things we're saying work better if both people are trying to come to common ground and resolve and say, hey, I want to have this relationship more than I want to be right. And so that's a lot different if you're talking about a government representative or a best friend or a spouse or a family member, a neighbor. There's all kinds of different dynamics out there. But I do think that when you're tempted to boo someone, just think hard about how you're going to do it. If you're at a sporting event, you want to boo, go for it.
If they are professionally paid.
Yes. But when you're in the rest of your life, really think about, is this important? Do I need to say this? Do I need to act on this? And we realize everyone who watches this podcast isn't necessarily a believer in Christ and trying to live according to his teachings, but are the actions that I'm going to take in this process ones that I will be proud of how I handled it? a week from now or a month from now or a year from now, and just stop and kind of think like, the things that I do when I'm really fired up don't always end well. So let me take a second here, or 5 or 30 seconds or whatever it takes, and just make sure. And I've been trying to learn to do that in my life, and it usually goes a lot better. So
I have noticed this. I'm proud of you.
Well,
because I do think just with your natural personality, it's not easy.
right.
With my natural personality, it does come easier to me. I need to practice probably being more bold. And I think there can be a place for both personalities to work on the separate angles of that.
Yeah.
Proud of you.
Thanks for putting up with me. Well, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. We know it's valuable. We're glad that you joined us. So we hope you'll join us again. Episodes drop every Wednesday. For now, we're David and Hillary, and we've enjoyed spending this time with you. We hope you have a great week.
That's right. See ya.